Hi, this is Steve. Welcome back to Scale Model Kit Review, and we are on part 2 of the King Ghidorah build. And a lot of stuff has happened since the first part. As many of you know, my dad passed away August 13th, 2020, and it was kind of unexpected. I was prepared for it. He was a good man, retired Air Force, always was good to his brother and sister and to his mom. He took care of her in her elderly years. And I don't live very close to my dad. I live in Arizona. He lives in Ohio. But anyway, I want to thank each and every one of you for your condolences with me, your thoughts, your prayers, and some of your private messages with me. I really appreciate it. It really helps out. So we finished up with the legs and the tails of King Ghidorah here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this aside. We're going to move on in the build. Now, in another video, we'll talk about how we're going to fix the seams on these legs and the best way possible. Now remember, I'm in a hotel room at an undisclosed location. I haven't revealed that yet with you all, but I think you'll figure it out as we go along while I'm here. So I'll be right back. I pulled the instructions out, and we are actually on step number 3 now, and we get to assemble all 3 heads of King Ghidorah. And it says trap tongue and center horn parts between the head halves. So I decided I'm not going to go ahead and light this one up, only because of where I'm at. I don't have access to all my LED supplies and all that, and I did give you guys some ideas on what you could do for LEDs. You could go to the automotive section at Walmart or even Target, and you can find those little LED light kits that people install on their cars. Some of them are cheap, some are expensive. You may not even want to go that route. But with this, I'm not going to light them up, but I can show you what you need to do that, as far as getting the body ready to run your wiring through and all that. So let's get started on step 3 here. We will get our sprue out that has the 3 heads on it, and we're going to remove them all. But before we do that, we need to remember we have the sprue that contained our mouth parts, and also that happens to be a horn. Now I mistook the small pieces that are the horn as the tongue, and I used them as a tongue. So we're going to be making horns out of scratch built a little bit later in the video here. But we'll keep those aside, so we have those parts for the head, which is the lower jaw, and the horn. Now, before I take these all off, I'm going to go ahead and get a Sharpie out, and I'm going to go ahead and mark them from underneath. It's a good idea to do that. These are already marked. These parts are marked underneath to identify what they are. But to make things easier, I'll take my Sharpie pen and I'll mark them all. That way when I remove them a little bit later, it's easy to identify which is which here. So any permanent marker or a Sharpie will work for this. And don't forget, any tools and supplies you see me use in this video, head over to my Amazon store and you can purchase those there. You can even buy this kit there. So there you go. I am back. So here's our conglomeration of King Ghidorah heads, and we'll go ahead and find our first 2 heads. Remember, I marked them on the inside so it's easier for me to see them. We need number 1 and number 4. So here's number 4. And number 1. And if you'll notice, there's a number 9. You see what I did with the 9? I put a line under it so I don't get confused with the 6. Okay. It's just the simple things in life. So they told us we need to sandwich these parts in between. So as far as the mouthpiece goes, we need to cut off number 3. So they're all marked separately. We have 3, 7, and it looks like 11. Okay, so we'll take 3 off first. And we also need one of the horns or the ears, number 2, they said. So we have those right here, 2. Looks like a 6 and a 10. So we'll take 2 off carefully. Hold on to it so we don't drop it on the carpet monster and lose it, because we don't have any extras of those. And then they just tell us we need to sandwich it in place. Something as simple as this is the bottom, so it's going to get sandwiched. Obviously his mouth is going to open and close on this kit. I'm not big into moving parts on this stuff, but you might be, so that's a nice option. So when we glue this together, it's all going to get sandwiched together. Remember, this is a snap-tight kit, and if we wanted to run wiring through here, that's a good time when you want to go ahead and maybe cut off these tabs. You don't necessarily need to have them if you plan on gluing this together, and also cutting out these 2 on the other side so you can run your wiring and your LEDs through there. So one option for doing that without risking your hand with a very sharp X-Acto knife and cutting your finger is just use your sprue cutters to go in there and cut out that attachment point for the tab that makes this a snap kit. That way you make room for an LED light inside of there. So I'm just taking and I'm cutting away in here, just making a bunch of cuts, and I'm going to rip the plastic out as much as I can here. Doesn't have to be neat, because you're not going to see the inside. You're just making room for an LED light bulb, maybe like a 3mm light bulb. You don't need to buy the surface mounted LEDs. They're real small SMDs, as we call them. Those are the tiny ones. A 3mm would do just fine in here. Alright, so we got rid of that, and we probably don't necessarily need to do it here because we have room to run our wiring. So I'm going to leave those intact. It was just this one right here. So if I was to run an LED in here, I would do that. The other thing also is you want to light block this with some kind of a really heavy duty primer or something like that. So you can get an automotive primer from Walmart and use that to coat that. So this part needs some cleanup. You can see here we do have some extra plastic, not much, so it's just going to be easy cleanup with our X-Acto knife or your hobby knife, and we're just going to clean that off. Kind of clean off the excess plastic here, scrape it away from the horns, and notice I'm working it away from me so I don't cut myself with the blade. These blades can be very sharp. Yeah, I've got my fair share of scars through the years of slicing myself with an X-Acto knife. And remember where I cut out that tab? So I'm going to go in there, I'm just going to clean that up a little bit with the hobby knife, very carefully so I don't cut myself. And just makes it very easy to do. I hope the camera angle is a little bit better for you this time. So that's what we do on that. Grab the other side over here, and I'm just going to cut off these tabs. I don't want them in the way. All of them. It just helped me to line it up a little bit better without having to worry about the tabs. So you can actually do that if you want. It's a technique. If you plan on gluing everything, you're just getting them out of the way. Okay? And easier to run wiring and all that through here too. Okay? Same thing, you want to create a trench or a hole for the wires to go through, so you can continue to run your wires through the model, and that's just an easy cut with your hobby knife. And we just got that trench right there, cavity right there. And there we go. That's all set. So I'm going to go ahead and off camera, I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and then we'll put this together. I'll be right back. So I am back, and I cleaned these up a little bit. I can clean them up a little bit more with some sanding sponges or sanding sticks. But remember, we have to sandwich some parts in between here first, which reminds me about this kit. Now we know this kit came, Polar Lights came out with it, but can anybody tell me, and put your answer in the comments below, where this tooling originally came from? Okay, so let me know in the comments below where the original tooling for this kit came from. Alright, so let's continue. So we want to sandwich in his mouth, and these are the teeth here, right? We want to see the teeth, and we want to sandwich that right there on that tab. Okay, this may take, let's get the tongue in here first. Let's put the mouth on, the lower jaw. That's perfect there. And the other side needs to go in there too. There we go. And that's the thing about the company that made these back in the day, because this is a very old tooling. They like to have moving parts. And that's what we have. I'm going to put glue on here. Capillary action. It's going to get everything going for us there. Same thing with this side. Just put a lot of glue on his neck. It may help to have some clothespins to help you hold it together. I haven't had a chance to run to the store to buy any, but there we go. Okay, so I'm going to hold this together and I'll be right back. So he is assembled and glued. The big thing about this was I had to glue his tongue in place. It would not stay in. So a really good pair of tweezers helped to get the tongue in place. I put a little tap of glue on there, then I moved the tongue to where I wanted it, and it's just going to stay right there. His mouth moves open and close, but big thing too is you want to try to keep the head lined up on top as much as possible with that up here, and everything else kind of falls in place. Other than that, we're going to have to fix the seams on this, but that's what's going to make this build fun, because we're going to have fun cleaning up the seams and what forth. So be right back. Well, the next head we build for King Ghidorah, it's numbers number 5 and number 8, and of course we grab a mouthpiece, and that's part number 7. And number 6 for the tongue. Now in this case I know that the tongue won't stay in place, so I'm just going to glue it. I'm going to take a little bit of extra thin, I'm going to put it in the hole there, just a tiny bit, take the tongue, and I'm going to put that right in there. Okay. And then I'm just going to position the tongue where I think it will look good. And we will put the mouth on. There we go. And we should be able to snap him together just like that. So he is snapped. This side here is a little tight there. There we go. And it's snapped together, so let's take our glue. Again, just get that together. Squeeze that together. Do the bottom. And looks good. I go in there with the tweezers and move his tongue down a little bit. I don't know if you can see that or not. Go. And there we go. And there's head number 2. Here's head number 3 for King Ghidorah, and these are parts number 12 and number 9, along with 10 for the tongue and number 12 for the mouth. So same thing as I did before. I'm not going to cut the tabs out. I'm going to just snap this together, put a little bit of glue for the tongue on there, get that going, and fit the mouth on it like it's supposed to be, and take the other side and snap it together. There we go. Yeah, this one's different on how it snaps together. So need to get that one going there a little bit. On the middle, middle tab there was not lining up very right. And then we can get his mouth in there and squeeze everything together now. There we go. And there's his mouth and there's his tongue. So everything's snapping together pretty good. Take our glue, extra thin, do the top of his head, and a little bit of the body, capillary. It's going to help hold that together there, and just kind of remember the glue is going to melt the plastic, so that looks good there. And put a little bit on the front. And that is it. He is done. The heads are done. So I apologize. I was totally wrong about the tongue inside these the head here. It actually isn't a tongue. It actually is one of his horns that comes out the top of the head. So we should have routed that through the top. But I like the idea of having a tongue, and we're going to go ahead and scrap build that horn that we're missing. And I'm going to use this sprue here, and I'm going to cut off these nubs right here and form a new horns for the top of his head. So I'll be right back. So I'm going to take my X-Acto blade, and I'm going to, while it's still attached, I'm going to cut at an angle to get a piece of that head. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger this time. And we can work with that, right? Go ahead and take and clean it up a little bit here. And that's going to make a nice horn right there. Okay, so we'll take our glue, put a little bit of glue on the horn. I'm going to attach it where the hole is on top. And I'm going to add a little more glue to it. Make sure it covers the hole as much as possible. And we will let that dry. Okay, and I'll reshape it a little bit, but I want to make sure it's glued down really good before I do that. Let it dry. So that's how we fix that. So I apologize for misleading you about the horn, thinking it was a tongue, and that was my mistake. But it's too late now. We'll move on with our scratch-built horn on top of each of the heads. So I'll be right back. So that completes part 2 of our King Ghidorah build, and I really enjoyed this. These were a lot of fun assembling these 3 heads, and we actually made the fix to the horns, and you can see that, the center horn in the top of his head on all 3 of these. It looks fantastic. And with a couple of these, I've already fixed the seams on them. You can kind of see that. So that's just a little bit of a preview for part 3 coming up. We'll show how to fix the seams on these in part 3. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry about the camera angles. I think the 2 camera angle really isn't going to work in my workbench here in the hotel very well, so I'm going to stick with the 1 camera angle, and I can go ahead and concentrate on keeping the build on the screen. So there are some opportunities there that was lost in this video because I was trying to do 2 camera angles, and so I won't do that next time. So give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell for all notifications. And thank you once again for all your prayers and condolences about my dad. It's greatly appreciated. Happy modeling, everybody, and take care.